I'm Demethius Jackson, and you're listening to a reading of my book entitled The Realmsic Conquest, The Hero of Legend. Chapter 57. "Come on, Ichthu, you can do it," Seku encouraged. The young soldier could barely keep up with him as they exited from the side of the castle. Seku balanced the extra weight by slinging the boy's arm around his own neck. Yet still, Ichthu was barely able to hobble on his one crutch. It seemed this injury still pained him, but despite the discomfort, Ichthu pressed forward across the field with all his strength. Seku was agitated by having to deviate from his original plan. They should have left immediately, but instead, he was meeting up with Rees on top of the east hillside. He felt like they were wasting precious time, but a promise was a promise. "Hold on to me tightly," Seku said as they began their ascent up the steep incline. This side of the castle was empty, with just the two of them hobbling together, the old and the injured. However, just on the south side of the castle, they heard the clanging and screams of the two powerful forces who waged Armageddon upon one another. Seku had no time to marvel at the smoke-darkened sky, which occasionally flashed orange from the flames soaring through it. He only maintained one focus: getting to Rees. "I swear this man better be here, or I'm leaving without him," Seku complained. Ichthu didn't respond. Panting heavily, he gripped Seku tighter for support as they negotiated the hill. It seemed to take all the young soldier's energy just to put one foot in front of the other and push forward inch by inch. "Come on, you can make it," Seku encouraged through gritted teeth. He could tell both he and Ichthu were on the brink of fatigue. At any moment, they could collapse and roll back towards the castle. "We can do it," he grunted, pushing forward, pushing away his encroaching thoughts about being too old for this type of thing. Closing his eyes, he concentrated all his faculties onto climbing the hill, mentally motivating himself with each agonizing step. Just a few more steps. Just a couple more steps. Just one more step. "We made it," he cheered, reaching the top of the massive hill. Ichthu fell to the ground, taking Seku with him. Both laid flat on their backs, looking up at the flickering sky. They'd made it. But where the hell was Rees? Suddenly sitting straight up, he looked around, but the hilltop was empty. "Where is he?" Seku asked of no one in particular. A massive plume of black soot barreled over them from the battlefield, further reducing visibility on the hilltop. They were coughing harshly when a glint of light caught their attention. Straining to see, Seku picked out what appeared to be a lantern flame dancing in the distance, just beyond the trees. "I see something," he exclaimed, pointing. He helped Ichthu upon his feet. Together, they staggered to the tree line, staying low within its bushes. Unsheathing his sword, Seku carefully pushed the leaves back. "What the?" he bellowed. Before him stood Rees, at the head of a massive crowd of men, women, and children. Seku resheathed his sword and rubbed the achiness out of his hands, trying to quell the anger rising within his mind. "Rees, I need you to explain yourself." "Calm down, old soldier," he pleaded. "These are just the people I told you about, the ones who wanted to come with us." Seku's eyes widened. "You said there were only a few." "Well, there were. At first. But then this person told that person and so on. Next thing I know, I got a legion of the fleeing on my hands." Seku flung his arms in resignation. "What am I supposed to do with all of these people?" "Lead them. Apparently, there were more folks than you realize who felt betrayed by Damien. Like you, they were tired of the lies, tired of being mistreated. So, the way I see it, we're all your people now." The old soldier stood firm without saying a word. His overwhelmed mind screeched to a halt as if broken. He couldn't think and had no clue what to do next. He scanned the frightened faces of the people before him. What was he going to do with all of them? "Well, you can't just leave us here, man," Rees argued. "He's right," Ichthu said, putting a hand on Seku's shoulder. "Please, take them with us." Again, he stood firm, feeling as if he alone bore the weight of the entire world. But as difficult as it was, perhaps this was finally the way to cleanse the blood from his hands and repay his former sins. With a great sigh, he resigned himself. Fine. He shook his head in dismay. Reese, get these people organized. We're heading east. You got it. Okay, people. Get your things together. Quickly, he shouted, running through the crowd. Sekou smacked his own forehead. There had to be at least 100 of them. This way, let's move, Reese ordered, herding everyone forward. As the crowd followed through the hilltop trees, Sekou grabbed his bag with one hand and then Ikthu with the other. Together, they began walking with the group. Not far from their location, the war waged angrily. But not once did Sekou look back. In his mind, that part of his life was now over. He allowed himself to be manipulated and used by Damien, but no longer did he feel loyalty towards him. No longer would he burden himself with grandiose ambitions. Going forward, his people were his only concern, and right now, they needed to be led to safety.